Simon Owen is live from London as the Queen yesterday, and we've heard some scuttlebutt of this recently, but the Queen held some crisis talks with Harry and Meghan as they don't seem to be so entranced by the royal life. Cato, I was thinking about it. I quit a job as a lifeguard one year in the summer of 2000. The summer of 1980.
Right.
I don't know that I ever even thought about quitting the royal family. That would be something very unusual. But Simon, good morning. Give us your version and what London has on its mind in relation to this crisis within the royal family.
Morning. Yes, I mean, there's a huge amount of interest here. Not from everybody. This is not necessarily an entire population transfixed by the royals, but I think this past week or so gives you an indication of why there is such interest in this family, not just the privileged and powerful position they hold in British society, but the tribulations and very human tribulations that they go through as a family, and this is just the latest chapter for them. It was last Wednesday evening, we got first a bombshell from Prince Harry and wife Meghan saying they intend to step back from their roles as senior royals, followed up hours later by another bombshell suggesting from Buckingham Palace that they'd made this announcement without consulting any other royals. We think that initial discussions had happened in private, but then with the story apparently about to splash in one of the newspapers here, Harry and Meghan decided to get out there and make it public without consulting the rest of the family. Now, that has touched off something of a crisis for the Windsors. And so yesterday, the Queen called together a meeting involving her as the head of state, plus Prince Charles, her son and heir, and then Prince William, the next in line to the throne, and at the centre of all of this, William's younger brother, Prince Harry. They met, they held talks. The Queen then put out a statement, which is pretty unusual to get a statement from the Queen giving her account of discussions taking place. But after 5 days of intense speculation and a lot of talk about splits and rifts and anger and upset within the royal family, the Queen said very clearly in this statement, "My family and I are entirely supportive of Harry and Meghan's desire to create a new life as a young family."
Simon, let me ask you this. As someone who lives in America, we understand and have been educated about the co-equal branches of government. In America, we have an executive, a legislative, and a judicial. The British government is a parliament with a prime minister. Does the Queen and the royal family have any influence on the political process? I guess what I'm asking is this more of a Hollywood story if it were in America and not a Washington story?
It's a bit of both, because technically they have huge power. Anytime the government here puts a bill into law and wants to bring a new law about, or wants to do anything, declare war, whatever, the legislation gets sent to Buckingham Palace and the Queen has to sign it. And if she doesn't, then it can't become law. So she has the potential to overrule the government. It's described as Her Majesty's government, and she has the powers of most head of states around the world. She is very powerful. Now, in reality, she does not use those powers. So she signs the laws, whatever. They come to her desk, she signs them. So technically, it's fairly ceremonial, but ultimately, she still wields a lot of power potentially.
That's an interesting point. Last question. Appreciate your time. You know much more about this than we do. America elected Donald Trump. Great Britain had Brexit. What is the opinion amongst the people of Great Britain as it relates to the monarchy, the royal family? Is there animus? Is there an acceptance? I mean, in other words, if we were to poll the royal family and should they still exist, what would the majority of Brits say?
I think it would be an overwhelming yes, keep them. And, you mentioned Brexit, you mentioned President Trump's election, and I know that his election has been divisive in America. I can tell you Brexit has been incredibly divisive in the UK, but actually the royals, I don't think, would create such a division. There is a vocal Republican movement here, and in Britain by Republican I mean people who want the monarchy abolished. And when you get a situation like this, where there's all sorts of speculation about what this stepping back by Harry and Meghan might mean for taxpayers and what they spend on the royals, the Republican movement, really makes its voice heard and has a lot to say of a critical nature of the way the royals carry out their duties. But actually, while that is a vocal movement, it is a minority movement. It's very much on the sidelines. And so the monarchy as an institution remains popular, and the Queen and Prince Harry are the two most popular members, according to polling, of the royal family. And that's why there's such intrigue, I think, with this potential split going on. These are two very popular people who are at the centre of this matter. And just one point about Queen Elizabeth II and the fact that the monarchy is still popular, I think is probably in a big way down to the fact that over the 6.5 decades that she's been Britain's head of state, she has adapted it, she's evolved it, and it has to evolve if it's going to stay relevant and, more importantly, perhaps stay popular. So maybe this is a really nasty split and it's going to go horribly wrong. Or maybe it's just another evolution, and it's one more evolution for Queen Elizabeth II to figure out and preside over.
One last question. I am so interested and intrigued by this, and I think a lot of Americans are. What is the opinion of Meghan Markle in Great Britain? That's a trickier one to put a finger on, and she's a relatively new addition to the family. Remember, they've been married less than 2 years, and she wasn't well known here until their relationship was revealed, which was not long before they got engaged and got married. I think there has been some divisiveness. There have been suggestions, and Harry suggested quite early in their relationship that some of the negative coverage of Meghan, as she was then, Meghan Markle, was motivated actually by racism. And he's kind of damped down that suggestion now. He doesn't talk about it so much, but initially at first that was something that he suggested explicitly he felt was behind it. She has had a rough ride from some of the tabloid newspapers, and there was a really interesting comparison here online of how some of the things that Kate Middleton, as she was before she married Prince William, did, and how they were similar to what Meghan has done, whether it's the choice of flowers for their wedding, or the way they dress, or the way they carry out duties while pregnant. And side by side, in the same newspapers, you get pretty positive headlines about Kate and pretty negative headlines about Meghan, even though they're doing pretty similar things. And that, I think, has really grated with this couple. They feel they've had a rough ride from the tabloid newspapers. Harry had always hated them anyway, ever since his mother was killed, and he feels hounded to her death literally by the paparazzi and tabloid newspapers here. And so it perhaps didn't take much to encourage him to say, do you know what, enough's enough and time's to step back. He is very angry with the tabloids. Meghan has been very upset by them, and they've both spoken about that. So the opinion of her, I mean, it's a sensitive one, and people will give you all sorts of opinions. I think some people do have issues with her, but I think there's a lot of other people who see her and this marriage, they are rock stars for royalty. And for a lot of people in Britain who are perhaps young, liberal, diverse, these two bring something that the royals do not have without them. That's the risk, if they slip away, is that Harry and Meghan reach an area of the population that, frankly, other royals don't know how to reach. Simon, thank you so much, man. That's one of the most interesting back and forths that I've done since I've been on radio for 8 years. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time, sir.
As you say, it's intriguing. Thanks a lot.